week 6 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few tight ends I have as sleepers this week. The first tight end, Jake Tongs of the San Francisco 49ers. So Tongs, it's been a good season for him filling in for George Kittle. Looks like Kittle's going to be out one more week, and then he'll return next week in week 7. And Tongs still out there in 92% of fantasy leagues. And he's been getting peppered with targets over the last couple weeks. Week 4 versus Jacksonville, 3 catches, 58 yards, a touchdown, 5 targets. And then week 5 at the Rams, 7 catches, 41 yards, a touchdown, 11 targets. And him and Mac Jones in last week's ball game, they have great rapport working with the second team in all training camp and preseason. And then Tongs, he stepped up though since he's been in the lineup for George Kittle with 3 touchdowns in 5 games. So this week in a potential high-scoring game at Tampa Bay that gives up the 13th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season, I think Tongs could go out there once again, have a decent game. And like I said, if him and Mac Jones last week connected and making plays, and even early in the season, him and Purdy were making plays, Tongs this week in a pretty good matchup is a good sleeper option. Next tight end, Cade Otton of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Otton out there, 94% of fantasy league. And we had a big game last week, was Cade Otton. So Chris Godwin, we know he's playing, still not 100%. Mike Evans, he's still out, most likely going to be out once again this week. And not in the last 2 weeks, starting to get some targets at least. Week 4 versus Philly, 3 catches, 9 yards, 4 targets. And then last week, the big game for him this season, 4 catches, 81 yards on 5 targets at the Seahawks. So this week, a decent matchup versus San Francisco. This could be a high-scoring game between these two teams. And Cade Otton, he's a big target, 5'6". In the red zone especially, you always want a big guy like that could catch the football and make a play when it's bunched up down there in the red zone. And also Baker Mayfield's the type of quarterback that spreads that football out. So Mecca Buka, he's been playing great. Obviously, this offense is rolling in Tampa Bay, but Cade Otton looks like over the last couple weeks he's getting more involved, and he's a sleeper this week. In the final tight end, A.J. Bonner of the Seattle Seahawks. He's been a sleeper for a while now for me, is A.J. Bonner, and he looks like a good target in this offense, especially in the red zone. 4 touchdowns on the season for Seattle. In the last few weeks for him, week 3 versus New Orleans, a catch, 23 yards. Week 4 at Arizona, 3 catches, 32 yards, a touchdown, 3 targets. And then last week, the breakout game versus Tampa Bay in week 5, 7 catches, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns on 7 targets. So this week, another decent matchup at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know their defense creates turnovers and makes plays. A lot of people thought Elijah Arroyo was going to be the tight end for the Seahawks team, but A.J. Bonner's going out there and making plays, finding the end zone, and he's had 3 double-digit fantasy games out of the first 5 this season. So him and Darnold have rapport. Sam Darnold's a quarterback that's a lot of confidence and spreads that football out. And A.J. Bonner, another tight end who's a big target in the red zone and can make plays. So like I said, still out there, surprisingly 92% of fantasy leagues. And now after the first 5 weeks, he's going out there and he's putting up some numbers. That's a few tight ends I have as sleepers for week 6 of the fantasy football season.